magician. He settled for
Hello and welcome to a lacrosse-filled still episode of Troy Nunes' Absolute Livestream. Well, Andy promised us last week that we're no longer talking lacrosse. Some breaking news came in that we're gonna have to address. Andy, Christian, how we doing?
A coaching change is possible? I wasn't aware that was something a person could do.
Christian is going to be singing Broadway tunes this entire show, which is actually probably better than what we were originally planning, which was a 30-minute Loki preview.
No kidding.
Yeah, so men's lacrosse decided to cut that down to a 15-minute Loki preview, and the rest of the show talking about what the breaking news was, which is that Gary Gait will be stepping down or retiring as the coach of the Syracuse Orange.
Other way around.
Other way around.
John Desko will be retiring as the coach of the Syracuse Orange men's lacrosse team. I'm having too much water, sorry. And Gary Gait, the current head coach of the women, will be stepping down from his position and taking on the role of men's lacrosse coach for only the 5th time in Syracuse history.
Yeah, there are the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then there's Syracuse Lacrosse. Pittsburgh Steelers like to talk about how there's only been that's Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin since 1969, and Syracuse men's lacrosse has decided to say we've been around since 1912, and we have 5.
Syracuse Lacrosse, they definitively said, hey, hold my beer.
Laurie Cox, Roy Simmons Sr., Roy Simmons Jr., John Desko, and now Gary Gait.
It is
over almost 110. We're getting close to 110 years of Syracuse lacrosse.
Yeah.
And the program is only about to see its 5th ever head coach.
It's a head coach that played for Syracuse and is arguably the best ever to play for Syracuse. There are so many levels to this, and I want to start with an important level that I think we need to frame this discussion around. It's something that Sarah Stanley, our wonderful women's basketball writer, posted in our Nunes Slack as soon as this broke.
Yes.
This is not this shouldn't be framed as an upgrade of a job. It will be, probably in terms of financial compensation. It probably will be in terms of the way that most of the media talk about this. But this job is definitively not a upgrade on the women's lacrosse job. This is a very different job. Arguably, this is coaching an entirely different sport. Obviously, Gary Gait's credentials for why does he get to coach this entirely different sport? He's the best to ever play this entirely different sport than the one he's been coaching. But I want to throw that out there, and I think that that's really important. The second level to this, and I'm going to start off coming out with the hot takes, and Christian, get ready for it. Grab your catcher's mitt for this one. Gary Gait did not win a national title at Syracuse as a head coach of the women's lacrosse program. And Christian, the expectations of the men program are that you have to win a national title. And Gary Gait has not yet done that and proven that at the women's level. I understand the continuity. I understand that he knows the program and he knows the culture. I understand that a lot of fans are really happy with this move. But man, he's got to do something he has never done as a head coach, and he has to do it fast.
Which is why, if he won with Syracuse this year against Boston College in the tournament, it probably seems a lot easier to make this decision. Yeah. However, there is a feeling of there was unfinished business with this women's lacrosse team, and he felt like it almost feels like he could help bring all the missing pieces together still, especially at the women's lacrosse team. So I actually agree with Sarah, is that not only doesn't seem like an upgrade, it doesn't seem like it's like, I'm not sure how I want to phrase this. But it's definitely not necessarily a good look for the women's lacrosse team to say, hey, our head coach almost won. Instead of giving him a chance to actually win with some really good, talented players, let's shift them over to a more beneficial program for our institution, which I'm not sure if that actually sends the right message. I think it would almost even send a stronger message if the Syracuse kept Gary Gait and had him win the national championship with that women's lacrosse program, because there was a very good chance he probably could have with the players that were coming back next year.
Right.
That being said, as we talked about, and as people have mentioned online on social media, as I wrote about, if Syracuse men's lacrosse was going to make a change, it had to do it this year. Otherwise, John Desko probably would have been Syracuse's fourth lacrosse head coach for still a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And so it almost was a now or never move. And so other circumstances probably contributed to that as well.
Yeah, and that's totally understandable. And like, if they had to, pull the plug, now was the time. The one nice thing, as much as poaching from the women's side does suck, the one thing that it does open up is 3 of the top candidates in women's lacrosse right now are 3 Syracuse alumni. And that really opens the door for 3 of the best women to play at Syracuse. Similar to Gait on the men's side, 3 of the best women to play at Syracuse on the women's side in Michelle Tumolo, Katie Rowan, and BC, Kayla Trainer.
Kayla Trainer.
Yep. I was like, I watched her play. I can't remember her name. But the 3 of them all are in successful positions to make the bid for this job, and to have a extremely high profile, women's lacrosse alum as the head coach of the women's side is also nothing to shake a stick at. So, I wholeheartedly agree that, chopping Gait out of the women's side and putting him over on the men's is not a great look from that end. Hopefully, in the grand scheme of things, we can turn that into a positive.
What I will say is one of the names that is out there, we give a huge shout out to Terry, official Lax Girl on Twitter. One of the names she put out there, and a lot of names that people on Twitter are putting out there, Joe Spallina, who is Stony Brook's women's lacrosse head coach. And the reason that is important to watch, because that could actually gain a lot more traction than some of the alumni in Kayla Trainer, Michelle Tumolo, or Katie Rowan, is because Spallina's son is coming to Syracuse next year. Remember, Joey Spallina is the #1 recruit in the class of 2022.
Right, he's coming in.
Which means he is supposedly a better recruit than Owen Hiltz was.
Right.
Coming out of the class of coming out of his class. So that could play a big part of it as well.
Yeah, so his son coming in and rocking the 22, because, Scanlon ain't going to be using it anymore.
Yeah, Scanlon's not using the 22 anymore.
Thank God. Hopefully he can cleanse the number, and if the hype is real, then but who knows? I mean, you see that a lot on the basketball side, where the dad is the extra sauce in the signing, but in this case, Spallina is an established head coach at Stony Brook, and it's kind of happenstance that it came up, but it's definitely a name to be there.
What was the extra sauce on Jimmy Boeheim?
Cornell Speedies? We'll go with Speedies.
I haven't had a Speedy in so long. They're really good. Used to get them in Binghamton when I would call Rumble, formerly Mets, now Rumble Pony games.
Best name ever.
Yeah, it's just so great. I love minor league baseball.
The yard goats of Hartford.
So we covered the women's side, which is that there is going to be a women's head coaching search. It would not surprise me at all that it's Steve, Christian, both of you have been around SU Athletics. You've been around the news cycle to know that typically when a story this big gets leaked, the institution or the team that got leaked on typically like puts out a very hastily put out social media post being like, okay, we're going to confirm all this. Like, we want to control the messaging from here on out. We don't want any more like hyperbole and reporter sourcing covering this. We want to put our own faces in front of this. We haven't gotten that yet. And again, this is pure speculation using my therapy words here. I feel like this is because they're trying to align everything in one giant lacrosse press conference where Desko will say that he's retiring. They will announce Gary Gait is taking over, and then they will also have whoever the women's head coach is going to be all in one shot. And I wonder if the reason why this news got leaked and why this report got out is because of the conversations going on looking for a women's head coach. Because you go, why is Syracuse asking around about new head coaches? Well, where's Gary Gait going? Oh, well, Gary Gait's going to stay in. He's not leaving Syracuse. Oh, okay. Now we can put all the dots together. So I that's my theory. I don't know if it's actually true. Pure speculation. I feel like that's kind of where this is going. And Steve, to your point, I did a feature on Kayla Trainer for NunesMagician way back in the day. Fantastic student athlete. She's turned into a fantastic coach. She's overcome a lot of adversity, overcome a lot of injuries, and is like that coach who really could have done a lot more if the injuries didn't get in the way. And I feel like that kind of chip on your shoulder would fit in very well with this women's lacrosse team that's going to be coming back next year with a big chip on their shoulder.
And she can show up with a ring.
Yeah, and also to come up with a chip on her shoulder in terms of winning a national championship game, because she's been in a national championship game and lost a national championship game to a dynasty squad in Maryland. Yeah. So she has that. Yes, while she has the experience of winning a ring, she also has the experience of losing a ring and being hungry to win a ring. So that could be very important if Syracuse goes down that route.
Right, and she played under Gait. Tamola played on. Did all three of them play under Gait? I don't know if Rowan might have.
Yeah, Rowan might not have, but
or like early Gait years, if anything.
Yeah.
So no matter who comes in, if it's one of those three, they're familiar with the system. I'll flat out say I have no idea if all three of them coach like Gait's system.
Yeah.
But if nothing else, they'll know what he's taught these guys to do. So they'll have a leg up in what they're getting as players.
I will note also, like, whoever does become the women's head coach is going to get someone really good to coach in Emily Harris-Chuck.
Yep.
That will be very, very fun to see how that relationship forms. Because, I mean, Emily Harris-Chuck is a good player. She is good. That should be really fun to see how she gels with a new head coach and how the new players, the talent on this team, gels with a new head coach.
Absolutely.
If you were wondering, Katie Rowan had a record-setting season for on the way to the Final Four in Gary Gait's, I believe, second season, if my math lines up correctly. So, yeah, okay. She wasn't recruited by Gait, but she got the Gait bump once that system came in.
Yeah, that works. So, no matter what, it looks like it, and it's welcome to this cast where we have the amazing. Breaking news headline, and we're just going to put it to the women's side because it makes more sense.
But now that you said that, I think we should talk about the men's side a bit, because I want to talk about something that has come up along the lines with all the people confirming sources, and that's who's going to be joining Gait on his coaching staff. And the first one, I think, is going to be very happy for Syracuse fans, is that Pat March is reportedly staying on the coaching staff. He did very well with the offense in his 2 years so far with Syracuse, and the offense just looks so good under March that I think it is good that he's staying on. The defensive coordinator, I think we knew that Leland Rogers wouldn't be sticking around, but the name that they're choosing for defense is very, very interesting. Dave Petramala.
Which, for those of you who do not know lacrosse, Mike Waters summed it up perfectly.
Yes, this is a perfect tweet.
If Carmelo Anthony was the coach of the Syracuse women's team, and he succeeded Jim Boeheim on the men's side, and then hired Jim Calhoun as an assistant. So I remember this guy's John Hopkins teams just beating the ever-loving crap out of Syracuse. Not necessarily on the scoreboard, like they were always close games, but just like physically beating the crap out of Syracuse.
His 2015 team is why that 2015 Syracuse team doesn't have a championship ring.
Fair. Yeah,
it is. He was such a good coach, and I think I have so many questions about this. And Christian, you followed this sport like a lot more closely than I do, and then Steve does. Steve, you have a little bit more of the history than I do. But this definitely kind of feels like I don't think that there's a great pro analogy that I have. It's not quite getting the band back together, but it's kind of like what the Boston Celtics did with the Kevin Garnett super team. It's kind of like what the New York Yankees did when they were like on the slide. Like, here is a great program that has the name and they haven't won in a really long time. And are you good enough? Like, do you want on your legacy, on your resume, that you were able to revive this once great program? And it kind of feels like that's what's going down here.
Yeah, I think it needs to be, because especially like we've written about this on the website. John Arsenego and I have written about this multiple times on the website. This is the longest drought that Syracuse has gone without seeing good postseason success. They haven't made a Final Four since the championship game lost in 2013. To any other program, that's like, yeah, we can make a Final Four every now and then, but that's okay. To Syracuse, that's an eternity. That 8 years feels like 8 decades to Syracuse not making a Final Four weekend. So this should be seen as, for Gary Gait, as an excellent opportunity. Now, what I will say is that this does come with caveats, is that while Gait is probably the most successful, most historic, most legendary player in Syracuse lacrosse history, the game has changed a lot since he played and coached men's lacrosse. He's never coached men's lacrosse at the collegiate level. He's coached at the MLL, but as people who have watched the PLL will attest to, the pro game is a lot different than the college game. And that goes for any sport, especially for lacrosse. So the fact that he hasn't coached men's lacrosse at the collegiate level ever is going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, Steve, you obviously never played college lacrosse, but it very much feels like with the hires that are rumored, if everything actually comes to pass, and I trust like Nico Tamarinian and Brent Axe are both confirming all of this stuff, so I trust their reporting. This very much feels like, in a football sense, you've got the high-end defensive coordinator, you've got the really successful offensive coordinator. Head coach might not be coming in necessarily to do X's and O's. Like, he'll have his hand on things. He's a brilliant lacrosse mind. He played the game. Kind of feels like, especially considering where Gait was before this, feels like the quote-unquote culture hire that gets talked about with football head coaches, the players coach, the whatever you want to call it. I'm interested, as somebody who is intimately familiar with these cliches.
Oh yeah.
One, what that looks like, and two, what does that make the rest of the staff look like?
Well, with Gait, it's not like I don't want to say it would just be a culture hire, because with him, like you said, he has the acumen, the X's and O's, the rest of the game around it. So you have solid, offensive and defensive coordinators, and you also now over the top have someone who can check them, who I don't know what Gait's preferences or system or any of that is, but from a logistics standpoint, you have someone who knows the game well enough to say, yes, that's a great idea, and like do the standard, like, okay, you came up with something great, let's see what else we can do with that. That's you can't go wrong with that. Well, you can go wrong with that system, but I don't know if in this situation you can. Like, March knows the ins and outs of everything Syracuse for as much as you need him to. It's going to be an interesting run no matter how they look at it, and I think having him as like if this arises like you're describing, where he is just the true head coach, and working with both sides to glean something more out of their systems, that could be something that even takes things to another level. That said, he's got a lot of work to do on the defensive end. So, yeah, good luck. Of course, he would have had a lot of work to do on the defensive end on the women's side, too. So, with what they were losing, like not what they had, but what was going to be next year. So, I guess good luck to Coach Gait and whatever he ends up doing with that mess back there.
Well, on the plus side, if anyone understands the weight and expectations of the men's lacrosse program at Syracuse University, I think it's Gary Gait.
He might have an idea.
Just a little.
Baby idea. He's the one that has a statue in Manly because of a freaking leaping thing, right?
Right.
That...
I mean, some people know a play in lacrosse called Air Gate, but who's to say?
Christian, we're gonna dive into. Oh, sorry, what was that, Steve?
Oh, I was just gonna say, when you have things named after you, you probably did something okay.
If you forced rule changes in lacrosse, you probably did something okay.
I love. It is really remarkable that Gary Gait is the head coach of Syracuse men's lacrosse. And I'm sure that the parents of lacrosse recruits know what that means. But as we've kind of seen on the basketball side, kids don't necessarily know what any of that means. Yes.
30-second timeout here. Mike in the chat just noted that X reported Kayla turned the job down.
Whoa!
So on top of our breaking news, we have breaking news, courtesy of Mike Held.
Mike Held, I love you. Thank you, good friend. I was going to say, you just bumped my breaking news that I was going to have on that. So let's talk about, before we get into a whole other recruiting thing, which Brent Axe also just posted something about. Brent is...
Also,
just...
sober up, Mike.
Okay, so Kayla turns it down. Christian, I'm going to turn this right back on you real quick. Why would she turn this job down? Like, it's Syracuse women's lacrosse. It is. I think I know what you're going to answer, but I'm not going to put words in your mouth.
God, I don't know.
My initial gut feeling is that Syracuse women's lacrosse has not won yet won a national championship, and you're the person following the guy.
Right.
And you never won, and I can point you to an Arsenal. I can point you to whoever takes over for Jim Boeheim. I can
Manchester
point you
United.
To...
David
Manchester
Moyes.
United, yes.
You do not want to be David Moyes, and that might
be.
Yes.
And especially with Trainer with no head coaching experience too. So
yeah.
Like the other two at least have a head coach, like have been head coaches for a couple of years now, whereas Trainer just as an associate head coach, while she's high up in the chain, you come back and actually, you know what? I've got one for you as the color of the walls surrounding me. Trainer doesn't want to be Frank Lampard.
Oh.
She doesn't want to come
really
back
good.
home. Yeah, she doesn't want to come back home and get, that whole mess of like, yeah, you succeeded at X, Y, and Z, but it wasn't quite good enough and get canned.
That's good.
She doesn't want to be Frank Lampard.
I love
so you know
this
what?
cast.
So what that means? So, Tumalo or Rowan probably are high up on their list.
Yeah.
But if Syracuse is looking for immediate success right now, it might be Spallina.
Yeah.
Well,
who has coached Stony Brook to be one of the powerhouses of women's lacrosse.
Christian, you are reading my mind right now. So Brent did not report this, but he retweeted an article from Lindsay Kramer of the Post-Standard, who is speaking with Syracuse lacrosse recruits as we speak on both men's and women's side because she's a wizard.
We have conflicting reports now because Stephen Fonte from News Channel 9 has reported that Trainer is an early favorite still to fill the vacancy. So who knows what's happening now?
Syracuse Media Wars, just like an Anchorman.
Here we go.
There's going to be a battle outside in the parking lot outside of Darwin tomorrow. I'll be there.
Oh,
Oh,
I will love to watch that. Please record that and put that on TikTok.
this replaces the street hockey tournament that the Syracuse Crunch put on.
That's so sad and so true. Oh man. Back to Kramer and Brent Axe's retweeting of her reporting.
His
Christian,
his reporting. His.
Yeah. His.
Lindsay's the dude.
The first person that Kramer quotes is Joe Spallina, naturally, whose exact quote is, quote, "Everybody's hearing rumors. It's obviously getting pretty wild. We love Coach Desko. We're shocked. He's a great man." Spallina did not want to speak for his son regarding whether a change would impact his recruitment. But he said himself, Joe, has a good relationship with Gary Gait. There's other recruits in here. They're all some version of shocked. We're sad to lose him. And there's another great one who is Carter Kempney, who is a top recruit of the 2022 class. His sister played for Gary Gait at Syracuse. So his sister said that certainly the girls are sad, and the guys all seem psyched in terms of she's talking about the current players on the team.
I think that's the guy Carter instead of the sister who's talking.
Okay, making sure. Okay. There's lots of last names going.
Yeah.
So that article...
it's like our conundrum with which Boeheim is speaking now.
Yes. So that article will continue to get updated. I will continue to refresh it as we go.
Yeah.
But kudos to all of the reporters in Central New York who thought they were going to have a lovely summer evening that has now just turned into them glued to their cell phones and their computers.
I mean, I'd rather stay in instead of stay out in the 90-degree, muggy, humid heat that is Syracuse right now. Holy crap.
Yeah. There's a lot going on. Steve, I'm as the elder statesman of the group, and I use that term very loosely here, just because Christian and I are babies. That's basically the reason.
Yeah.
When was, I can't remember anything like this ever happening or reading about anything like this happening in Syracuse, any sports, period. Lacrosse, men's basketball, women's basketball, football. This is such a unique situation that we found ourselves in, where they've promoted from within. I don't care if it's cross sport, but this is just such a surprising move.
Yeah, I mean, we see a lot of we have seen, especially in football, we've seen a lot of the promoting from within, which usually falls flat on its face, but this one has a little bit different feel to it. So, I don't know.
Like if Doug Marrone was an O-line coach at Syracuse before he got the job.
Well, no, it'd be if he was the women's hockey coach and then got the job.
Yeah, the weight and feel. It's almost like if Jim Brown was the lacrosse coach, and then Wildhack comes and says, "Okay, we're making Jim Brown the football coach now."
Yeah,
that's kind of what the feel would be.
Yeah, that's we're coming up with some really good analogies on this one.
We're doing great. Well, we're forced to really put the pressure on here. We're really forced to do it.
Welcome to Troy Nunes is an absolute live stream, a video of analogies.
I do appreciate this, that we're literally all just refreshing Twitter as we go here to make sure we don't miss anything. This really does. If you're watching this live, you're probably experiencing it all with us, which I think is really fun.
You know what? I'm switching to TweetDeck so I actually get up to date what is happening.
Oh gosh, I really do. Just okay, we can have a Twitter. That can be a show where we just crap on Twitter's new updates. I think the only other thing for the men's lacrosse side that we can do, that we have to talk about before we put this to bed.
Oh, we're still talking about lacrosse.
Oh, I know. Well, don't worry. There's other sports coming that we've all talked about.
With other stupid head coaching things.
Exactly. Steve, we talked about this last week. And I made the question of, what the hell is Gary Gait's legacy? And I asked the question, what happens if he doesn't win a women's national title? Does that taint his Syracuse legacy? Obviously, it won't, because he got this job. But how soon does he have to make a Final Four before the Firegate hashtags start up? And I'm not asking for like an exact number, because obviously this team was incredibly loaded, and like that's part of the reason why. There was the Scanlon issue, which was absolutely terrible. There's a lot of blame to be shared, not just on Desco, but on the admin at Syracuse. But then there was also having a team filled with All-Americans, filled with players who were like really good talents at Syracuse. And he went 7-6 and a first-round exit. Like, you can't have both of those things in the same season. Gait hopefully will not have a Scanlon situation to deal with, but he will have a semi-talented team, even though it's got some major holes and some major flaws. So I'm not saying that next year it's Final Four or bust. But what is the arc of failure allowed for him before the knives come out?
That, my friend, is a golden question. Now, to be fair, he inherits a pretty damn still loaded squad, and the pressure's probably going to be like the gas pedal's not stepping back. Like, you're not pulling your foot off the gas. Like, it's going to have to be within the next couple of years, or there's not like that's when you start looking at that tainted legacy of, did you take this for a reason, or why did you take this if you're just going to peter out like into mediocrity. So I would say within the next 2 to 3 years, there's got to be at least, a Final Four or 2 and banging on the doors for a natty. Like, you don't make the move to Gary Gait to not keep your foot on the gas.
Christian, you're more into the recruiting. Obviously, Syracuse is bringing in a loaded class. They're bringing in the best player. They've got a new 22. There's going to be a lot of questions around next year's team. Overall, with everything that's happened, Syracuse will play a regular schedule next year. They will play their usual, like the Ivies will be back in full force. That's a whole roster of teams that are good at lacrosse. I don't think this job is going to be really difficult.
But that being said, again, as Steve said, there's still a talented roster there, at least in the attack and midfield. Let's go through the attack. Yes, you lose Stephen Rafis, but I mean, you still have Owen Hiltz, you still have Owen Seabolt, and you add Spalina, who could be a generational talent at Syracuse. And then you at the midfield, you lose Trimboli, but you still have Tucker Dordevic, you still have Brendan Curry, and presumably you bump Lucas Quinn up to that first midfield line. That's talent in your first 6. Now, what do you do with the defense? Because Mitch Wyckoff and Drake Porter aren't coming back, and there's not a lot of depth. You hope that the short stick defensive middies and long stick defensive middies get better, especially the short stick defensive middies with the loss of Peter Dirth. So the defense is going to be the question. That's going to be where Gait is tested on.
So Dirth, Trimboli, and Rafis all are gone. Do we know, like, has Porter said he's gone?
Oh, no, Porter was a 50-year senior, I don't think.
Right. Oh, are
Because
they not giving spring sports the?
I don't think they're giving spring sports because they already had that year.
Okay, they gave him that for last spring. Got it.
Like, this was the extra year, so there's no Porter and there's no Mitch Wyckoff either.
Okay,
because Mitch Wyckoff was a grad transfer from Gettysburg.
Yep.
So
yeah.
You're losing 3 major points of your defense in Porter, Wyckoff, and Dirth. Arguably the 3 best defensive players on the team.
Right.
Yeah, it's not. Again, the defense was the issue. That's what everybody, like the Gate, or not the Gate defenders, the Desco defenders pointed to the defense and said, like, something broke down towards the end of the year there, and like it's on him, but it's also on the DC, and like I guess this is why you bring in the name that you're rumored to be bringing in as the defensive coordinator. This is a fascinating situation. And we're talking, and I don't think we've talked about this enough, and I want to save this for next week's conversation. what the legacy of Desco is, because Gait's getting the moment right now, and probably should be because he's a legend in himself. But once Desco has officially announced the retirement and said, like, I'm not gonna go try to coach Johns Hopkins. I'm not, or whatever. Like, there's still an open possibility of that. Jim Calhoun retired and then was coaching that next season anyways.
Yeah, but that would be like Jim Calhoun like retiring and then saying, "I'm gonna coach St. John's."
Yeah.
Yeah, which I haven't seen yet. But I think Desco will be retired for good, and we need to talk about that legacy. But before we talk about Desco's legacy, I want to talk about the legacy of one James Arthur Boeheim. Yes, if you were tuned in for hot takes about coaches that you wanted fired, tonight is your goddamn show. Because
First of all, can we congratulate ourselves for spending 35 minutes on lacrosse?
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. And you know what? Next year when we get to lacrosse season and Andy and I know more about the sport, it'll probably be about that.
I want to give Christian all the credit in the world for jumping on this show like post basketball season and just being like, y'all are learning lacrosse whether you like it or not.
Yeah. Like, well, I'm going to teach you this. And he's done a damn good job of it, so.
I enjoyed watching the women's national title game until the second half, which everyone did.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about another generational talent that is at Syracuse and has not announced his retirement. James Arthur Boeheim. And the reason we're talking about James Arthur Boeheim is because Roy Williams will not be patrolling the sidelines for UNC this season. Coach K will be patrolling the sidelines for the last time this season. Coach K announced that he's getting the Jeter farewell tour. Before you guys give me your suggestions for what we should give Coach K as the Syracuse gift, because all the Yankees who did the retirement tours got nice gifts at every stadium they went to. Think of your Coach K gift. The conversation naturally turns to Boeheim having outlasted every Big East coach. He's outlasted the big ACC guns as long as he doesn't surprisingly announce his retirement at the end of next year. James Arthur Boeheim as the last man standing, powered by spite, is not surprising, but it definitely is like, oh wow, he actually goddamn did it.
Oh yeah.
Also, can we appreciate the fact, or disappreciate, or be discouraged by the fact that Coach K chose his walkout song to his farewell press conference to be everything I touch.
Yeah. Yeah, that was
the worst Duke tradition ever. It is terrible. Burn it with fire.
That was just bad. Really bad.
It set the tone though for what we're going to have this season, which is going to be a lot of cheesy Coach K goodbyes. And again, Steve, what would you give Coach K? Like, they're going to have a big thing where they're going to roll it out like in the final meeting. There's probably going to be some Team USA stuff involved in there. Boeheim's going to give him like a pair of shoes that he never wore from that Team USA time together.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
we're gonna have to give him a Syracuse inspired gift.
Yeah. So Held in the chat said a jacket made out of salt potatoes, which is like
Thank you guys for watching. Let's get out of here.
Right, the salt potato sculpture jacket would be absolutely top notch. I was literally going to say the jacket that he threw in that Duke game, that he should donate that, like buy it back and donate it to K from that game.
That is, I love both. They should do the salt potato jacket. They should give the real jacket and then be like, actually, no, the guy doesn't want to actually give it back, so you get the salt potato version.
Amazing.
So the question has turned to
What gift would I give Coach K?
What gift you give Coach K, and then I want you to answer the question of, does Jim Boeheim coach to catch Coach K?
Okay, so to answer the first question, realistically, he probably gives him a piece of the dome roof because they've still got probably like 900 panels of that left. So yeah, a piece of the dome roof, and then what you do is you take a picture of Cameron indoor, and then you copy and paste that 3.5 times, and then you say this is how many people can fit in the Carrier Dome.
Nice. Nice.
That is Jim Boeheim's spite personified.
So,
and please, the stadium.
Sorry, the artist formerly known as the Carrier Dome.
Yeah.
So, does Jim Boeheim coach until he catches up to Coach K's wins? Yes. Short answer. Long answer. Yeah, because Jim Boeheim, like as we said, is fueled by spite. Because what he's going to do is he needs to make up 101 wins somehow. So, or because the NCAA are the NCAA, and he's again going to need to make up that many wins.
Yeah,
Steve,
that said,
I think the NCAA is going to give him the wins back, but like he's still a lot behind K even with those 101.
yeah, the thing with, I don't know, as dumb as it sounds, I could see, like you said, he's fueled by spite. This is what Jim does. Like, he doesn't give a shit about anything except basketball. He could, like, the end of this season, after his boys both graduate, and he's done coaching his kids, he could just walk out. Like, it's either he's going to, like you said, Christian, beat K, or he's just going to, like, walk out of the dome and, say he's not coming back. Like, I think he's one of those guys, like the guy at work that just, like, walks out of the office when he's going to retire and doesn't tell anyone. Yeah. Like, he told his manager 3 weeks ago, but he told his manager not to tell anyone and that he's just going to walk out. And so I feel like that's him.
Well, what he's going to do is he's going to fly to Washington, hand the keys to the Carrier Dome to Mike Hopkins, and then just fly back home.
He just gives the keys to his office to Hop, and it's like, all right, you just come back.
To my friend VJ, who is a Washington grad and a diehard Hop defender, I hope you were listening to this because this is your nightmare personified, and I want it to happen so badly. He is full on the give Hop a lifetime contract. He loves that man, as do I. But like
that's every Syracuse fan.
Oh yeah.
The Jim Boeheim legacy conversation is so interesting to me because it is kind of remarkable that after all this time, the guy who quote unquote couldn't do it, who didn't win as many titles as K, who didn't win who didn't have the standing that Roy did with the MJ connection and all the shoe deals that Roy rolled out with all the Jordan stuff. He coached longer than all the Big East like he literally was like in that Requiem of the Big East thing. It was hilarious because he's the only coach who's still actually coaching.
Yep.
It is remarkable that he's the one that lasted. And I think Sean Keeley talked about this when Jim Boeheim's biography came out, that Boeheim personifies Central New York in a way that inspires devotion from Central New Yorkers. And Steve, I'm just tossing this up on a silver platter to you. Because there is that mentality of like, I got this job, I'm going to have this job for the rest of my life, I'm going to do it. Not tell me how to do this job. I'm going to be snarky about it when you tell me how to do this job. I'm going to say that it's actually not that great of a job, even though it's the only thing I've ever wanted in my life. like he is, there's just so many complexes wound up in this single person. It's remarkable to me that all of that has withstood 40 plus years, and he's still going to be the last old guy on the sidelines patrolling game in, game out.
Oh yeah, I broke it when it initially came out that K retired. We were looking at who the other old dogs in the coaching tree were, and it's like him and then two other guys that he's coaching against this year in Loyola's coach and somebody else that are like the only above 70 coaches, and and Larinaga too, because Leonard Hamilton
and Jim Boeheim. Well, Larinaga and Jim Boeheim are the same person. We know this, but let's move on.
Right, also true. There's a weird doppelganger thing, but whatever. That Jim Larinaga is Jim Boeheim if he enjoyed sun and fun on the beaches of Miami.
If he didn't answer Rick Pitino that his favorite vacation destination was Syracuse, New York.
Yeah.
Jim Larinaga looks like most kids' first attempt at trying to draw Jim Boeheim.
Yes. There we go. But yeah, Jim Boeheim, for any of us Central New York natives, and like you were poking at me because like my job. I've been there 12 years. I like what I do. That's what I want to do. Like, I'm not going anywhere.
Right.
But
There's just a unique. Mark Titus had that Jim Boeheim piece that came out a couple of years ago, which I think we've all talked about and read. Where like, for a dude who grew up in like, I guess it kind of makes sense. Shout out Connor and Homefield. Like, for a dude who grew up in Indiana, like, he understood the Central New York mentality and summed it up in a paragraph better than anybody else that I've ever experienced. And like, Christian and I are in the space of like, we weren't necessarily growing up there, but we went to school and had a very formative time of our life there. So like, some of those things kind of rub off on you. And it's a mindset. And it's a mindset that I think is so funny contrasted to what Coach K stands for. Like, Coach K got Zion. Coach K had Kyrie Irving. Coach K has the list of Duke players that are starring in the NBA playoffs and starring in the NBA every night. And Boeheim just never really did that. He never was that coach who was like the college coach who shows up on ESPN because my player is playing in the NBA Finals tonight.
right, he's the guy who shows up on ESPN because he got pissed because the media was disrespecting his player and he flipped out. And more power to him for defending his guys more than anyone else will. Like, Jim will ride or die with his team, for better or worse. He also will, throw random people under the bus. We've all seen the Boeheim media routine. But yeah, he just keeps on keeping on somehow, and I don't know if he came out and said he's going to coach till he's 80, or like at least coach till he's 80, or he could see himself coaching till he's 80, and it's like, I can't discount him because it's Jim Boeheim. Like, he's just going to keep ticking and keep going. So, whatever.
He's a specimen, an absolute specimen.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah, that's the only way to put it. Like, he is Jim Boeheim. I'm glad we talked about that. Again, tune in next week for the John Desko version of this conversation, which, oh boy, that's a tease. There is some other Syracuse news in the alumni front. Christian, I'm turning it over to you because I do not know a ton about the PLL, but apparently one of our players actually did something good.
Oh yeah, Stephen Rafis, our recent grad, just played for the Cannons his first 2 games this weekend up at Gillette Stadium, the home of the Fighting Tom Brady's, who are no longer the Fighting Tom Brady's, but I digress. Stephen Rafis did actually pretty well for the Cannons, got an assist in his first game, and in the second game that the Cannons won, had a goal and 2 assists, and actually got the game ball from Paul Rabel to mark his accomplishments, helping the Cannons to their first win in the PLL. So definitely already you've got some Syracuse guys performing well. Unfortunately, Sergio Salcido and Chaos kind of got thumped by the Whip Snakes, but we've got pros in Syracuse actually doing things, which is always good.
Yeah, on the women's basketball side, I knew that there was something big that had happened over there. So Brittany Sykes continues to be the most successful women's professional basketball player that Syracuse has ever had. She's a bench player for the LA Sparks, but if you're wondering if she could play anywhere else, she totaled 11 points, 5 rebounds, 5 steals, 3 assists coming off the bench last week. She is only the second player in WNBA history to have 10 plus points, 5 plus rebounds, 5 plus steals, 3 plus assists off of a bench. And it's the first time that that's ever happened in LA Sparks history. She is just tearing it up. I don't think there's really any other way to put it. So awesome for the Syracuse alumni who are just killing it in the pros. Good for you. Now that we're moving towards just soccer, WNBA, and lacrosse in terms of the pro sports that are in flight at the moment. The other thing I wanted to call out before we wrap up here, this week, Sarah Stanley, mentioned her at the top, had a great story. It's on NunesMagician. It's called Hello World, Women's Sports Are Growing and No Glass Ceiling Can Stop Them. Before you actually look at the tweets and respond with something, read the actual post. It's phenomenal. Sarah does a great job of summing up a lot of the things that we kind of talked about at the top of the recording, where women's sports should not be viewed as like a level below men's sports. And this is only continuing to grow with the way that ESPN and other rights holders are starting to pay for these rights. There should be a big boom coming pretty soon, especially with the way that viewership is trending. As Steve wears the USA jersey, perfect example of how the women's side is entirely driving the USA soccer conversation at the moment.
And to give it just a little bit of context, like for a women's side, like I'm not sure what it looked like in the first initial hour, but right now on Twitter, most of the talk I've seen on Twitter regarding lacrosse is who's going to be Syracuse women's lacrosse head coach, not can Desco fill the shoes of the men's lacrosse job. I mean, Gait, but yeah, same thing.
Hey, I'm not the only one that did it. Yay!
It is, and again, one team went to the national title game. The other got bounced in the first round.
By Georgetown. Ugh.
Yeah. The other piece of news I wanted to shout out, John, who Orsonego, is that how I say that? I'm gonna pretend that's how I say it. Thank you. He is going to be busy over the next 24 hours writing all of the lacrosse pieces that we need to, and he'll be responding to a lot of your comments and wonderful things. He was featured in the New York Times this week. Did not expect to see NunesMagician in your New York Times inbox, did you? Ha 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 ha! We've made it big time now.
Well, you get that, and Sarah's piece got hit by Howard in the next, I think.
You tune in here for jokes and garbage, and it turns out that we are writing socially appropriate and impactful critiques. Well, none. We're not, but no. Other people who
we're doing the jokes and we're here for the jokes and garbage.
How far we've come from an apology letter to this.
I think Sean Keeley mentioned it. It's ridiculous that this went from a really deep cut inside joke that you heard in the intro to a site that sources feel comfortable citing when they're making arguments about inequality in sports. Which I don't mean to laugh because it's like insincere. I mean to laugh just because like this is a blog that has found its little niche, and I appreciate everybody who's watching. As we are almost at the hour. Steve, Christian, you're both Marvel fans. Loki, what are you most excited for? Christian, go.
Time travel. What? Basically, that's what the show is gonna be. Like, what the hell are we doing here?
Steve?
I'm looking for the over/under on how many times Owen Wilson says "wow" or "whoa."
What's the line set at? Is it at 50.5?
I'm thinking. I was debating 2 an episode. I was like 2 an episode as a line would be solid because we don't know how much screen time he's going to be in. Like,
yeah, that.
So I think that's where I'm going to set it.
But the thing is, that's tough because I could easily push that. I think I would push that, honestly.
Yeah,
it's gonna be really fun because I have not seen Owen Wilson. Like, they just announced that they're doing Wedding Crashers 2, why there needs to be a Wedding Crashers 2. Yeah, did you not see that news this week? They're doing a Wedding Crashing sequel with all of the major stars. So it's gonna be Isla Fisher, Owen Wilson, and why can't I remember the other 2 that are in that movie? Rachel McAdams and the other male lead. Can't remember his name. Vince Vaughn. There we go. All 4 of them are returning for the sequel, which I have so many questions about. Need that paycheck? I understand. Questions. His turn to like being a dramatic actor has always really impressed me. Last Night in Paris is like a really dumb Oscar baity movie, but he does a really good job of like bringing you into what I did not think was going to be a fun movie at all, and he made it fun. So I'm hoping for that. I also appreciate the one thing I'm looking forward to, though, in Loki is that they're insinuating that Loki is B.D. Cooper, the guy who jumped out of an airplane with, like, a lot of money. Great. Let's do that. Yeah. I want this. I want complete retcon of history.
So for anyone who's watching this that doesn't comprehend, this is not the Loki that sacrificed himself for Thor. This is Loki in 2012, Avengers Loki, when he was, just he was just grabbed at the end of Avengers and right after Hulk threw him through a wall. So it'll be interesting to see where this one goes. In other random news, Clint Dempsey is on the pregame,
Yes, I saw this.
rocking the greatest camo jacket of all time in the most Clint Dempsey, like that is Deuce personified. So
That
yes.
camo blazer is the one that the Men in Blazers gave to him at their Seattle show.
Oh, was it? Amazing.
It is.
Absolutely amazing.
He removed the Men in Blazers patch.
Yeah, well, I think because he's working for CBS now, so it writes things.
It's kind of a little tough. Yeah.
I'm sure Raj will understand.
They have reposted it and confirmed it is the same blazer. So
that's amazing.
He is the first Men in Blazers blazer recipient to actually wear his blazer in a TV setting.
Absolutely amazing. Also, on the Loki front, what's that? I was going to say, on the Loki front, if you're interested in that news, hang around on YouTube for about half an hour, and I'll be talking more about it. So, if anyone's interested, the Multiverse Report is the new podcast my buddy and I launched 3 weeks ago. So, feel free to check that out. Shameless plug time, so why not?
Oh yeah, I'll listen to that in a few days. And for those of you who want to listen to the NunesMagician podcast tomorrow, or I guess it comes out on Tuesday.
Yep.
I am stealing Dan Lyons to go to a Nets game, so you will get a special guest. I don't know who we got to fill in, but I'm stealing Dan. So just want to let everybody know that you don't get to hear Dan's dulcet tones. We'll be screaming from the upper levels at Giannis Antetokounmpo. Oh, I think that's a good name to end this on.
Yep, that works.
Yeah. Christian, Steve, night was really fun. I'm really glad that this news broke. I'm really glad I got to process a lot of my feelings with the both of you. I feel like this was part sports breakdown show, part like therapy session, as we kind of just got a lot of feelings.
That's how we roll.
How does this make you feel?
Well, we never answer that question. That's what keeps the people coming back for clicks. Thank you to everybody who participated or watched. Thank you to Mike Held, who participated very heavily in this show. And if you watch this show and chat along, we will read it. We will bring your suggestions to the forefront. Look for all of the great content this week regarding the lacrosse coaching situation for both men's and women's. We'll have more Get to Know Your Oranges. We will have something else that we haven't even thought of yet that's probably going to be on the site, because that's just kind of the way we run things. But we will be posting this. If you're watching live, we'll be posting this tomorrow on the site. If you're watching this Monday, thanks for sticking around and spending a little bit of your Monday with us. Christian, give us the rundown of all the things that we need to do.
Like the video, as always. Leave a comment as well, because we're not always going to have breaking lacrosse head coach news to talk about during the offseason. So leave a comment down below telling us what you want us to talk about during our offseason content before Syracuse inevitably goes 1-10 next year again in football. But also subscribe to the channel as well. And when you do, hit the notification bell so that when we go live with any of our live streams or we post any of our new videos on social media and on YouTube, you get notified when we post and go live.
This is why we have the youths around. Steve, anything else you want to shamelessly plug?
No, I'd say also, since we never say it, God damn it, Held. One last question from the Peanut Gallery. Should Jason Giambi replace Jim Boeheim?
Only if he's doing a ton of steroids.
Yeah, that's probably the only way we can do it.
That's a good Giambi, right?
Yeah. I mean, that also requires the use of a golden thong, right?
Something like that, yeah. As long as it's not Jim Boeheim in that, we're fine.
Let's avoid that, please. Let's get out of that.
You can always find us at NunesMagician.com as well. If you somehow stumbled upon this and somehow don't know the website. So for all your Syracuse needs, Troy Nunes is an absolute magician. I guess on that note, see you guys next week and go Orange.
Go Orange.